and welcome to this week's edition of the National Hour. He's Hayden Grove. I'm Jeff Hammersley. Hayden, NFL divisional playoffs over now in the books, but the big game of the week so far from that divisional weekend, the combo to end all combos, the 12th man and Skittles defeating the Saints 23-15. For the Seattle Seahawks, big win at home. Pete Carroll, part of that team with Russell Wilson. But I think for the Seahawks, jumping out to a 16-0 lead, Saints rally in the fourth, but it was just too little too late.
Yeah, I thought Marquez Colston was going to make that pass, and he was going to, bring home a win for the Saints. So it was a good game. It was definitely. I thought it was going to be much less close than it was. I thought the Saints were going to get it done, Seattle was going to get it done by a pretty big margin. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them next week.
The big thing for New Orleans, you're not going to win that very many games going 3 of 12 on third down. Seattle, 5 of 14, slightly better. But looking at the numbers, total yards, New Orleans, 409, Seattle, 277. So from that stat box, you're thinking New Orleans, that was in their favor. Also, time of possession, 30-30 for New Orleans, 29-30 for Seattle. It looked like it was just there for New Orleans from the stat box-wise, but really it was Seattle and the home field advantage that really brought home the win.
Yeah, Seattle's defense coupled with the home field advantage is really hard to win there. So, even as you said, with the stats, piling up in favor of the Saints, I felt like Seattle pretty much had it the whole way. New Orleans didn't convert on scoring opportunities, and it did them in at the end.
Yeah, the big thing toward the end, you had New Orleans driving down the field. Then you had the Marquez Colston in the game, a lateral. It was a throw, lateral, whatever it was.
It was nasty.
It was a 10-second runoff, so the game was over. But debate, good call or bad call by Colston to try to make the play and win it, or should he just stepped out of bounds when he had the chance?
I've heard rumors that it was not Colston's call. I heard that was a Sean Payton call. I heard it was a design play. That was on Twitter. I saw that, so maybe it wasn't Colston after all. It was a pretty legitimate source, but if it could have worked if he made a better throw. It was a last-ditch effort. If he goes out of bounds, I think they have a good chance. But at the same time, things like that work sometimes. Music City
Right.
Miracle,
Yep.
Things will happen like that. So, no, I don't think it was a horrible call, especially if it was Sean Payton's call after all. But it was definitely interesting to see. It was not a very good throw.
Yeah, I think if you were a Saints fan, also if you were Colston, there was a teammate on that side of the field.
Yeah, he was running down.
So you're thinking if he throws it a little bit behind, he catches it in stride. He may have housed it 35, 40 more yards than that. That's a touchdown, but Colston threw it in front. That's the penalty. Game over. Some of the stats from that game, Drew Brees, 24 of 43, 309 yards and a touchdown, so most of the offense coming off of his arm. Marquez Colston, 11 catches, 144 yards and a touchdown. Looking also, Robert Meacham, 2 catches, 69 yards. Russell Wilson, 9 of 18, 103 yards, not scoring that much with his arm, but Marshawn Lynch, 28 carries, $140, 2 scores. Skittles, as he's called there in Seattle, really was the difference maker to take down the Saints.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. You thought that the Saints defense would have trouble with Russell Wilson throwing the ball, but it turns out that it was all Marshawn doing the work for them. So, Russell Wilson at this point is kind of a game manager.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good quarterback, I think, but he's kind of turned into a game manager like a la Trent Dilfer with the Ravens. So, yeah, but it's all about beast mode, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's so good. He runs so hard, and he's so hard to tackle.
So with that, Seattle punches their ticket into the NFC title game, home field, flipping to the AFC side of the divisional playoffs. Running with the ones, LeGarrette Blount scores 4 touchdowns, and Patriots right at the Colts 43-22. Hayden, both teams had 14 drives. Total yards, 386 for the Colts, 419 for the Patriots. Looking from that stat line, it's like, it's going to be a close game, but in reality, time of possession, Patriots 35 minutes, and then Andrew Luck having another rocky game. That really doomed the Colts on the road.
Yeah, Andrew Luck needed to be his clutch self, and he wasn't this week. He made some dimes, though. He made some absolute beautiful throws this weekend, but he made too many bad decisions. I think he had a bunch of turnovers, and that's what did the Colts in. They look good, but it was just a matter of, a few picks here and there, and, it spelled doom for the Colts.
For Andrew Luck, 20 of 41, 331 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions.
picks.
That's the big thing there. I mean, he bounced back from the week before against Kansas City, where it was one of those games where it looked like the Chiefs had this thing wrapped up. Then just like that, snap, like really a toss of a hat, Andrew Luck wakes up, has an extraordinary second half, almost like a lightning precision of sorts. It was just finding the right receivers, making plays. But the cat with 9 lives here, he can only survive so long, and the Luck ran dry against New England.
Yeah, it was just, again, it was the turnovers. He threw, as I said, he threw some great passes, but it was the turnovers that did him in, and maybe it was maybe it was the beard that finally ran out of gas and things didn't go his way. But I mean, it's a tough environment. I mean, they won last week at home in Lucas Oil. This week they had to play in Gillette. I mean, that's a much tougher environment. And last week you're playing against Alex Smith, and nothing against Alex Smith, but Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and he was going to need to do something extraordinary, and he threw 4 picks. So, what are you going to do?
Also in the running game, Donald Brown for the Indianapolis Colts, 17 carries, 63 yards, so not very much in the production for touchdowns-wise there. T.Y. Hilton, though, 4 catches, 103 yards, helped a little bit there, at least moved him down the field. He's averaging, that's over a 25-yard average right there, so he was doing something right there. But the interesting stat I find, Tom Brady, 13 of 25, 198 yards, no touchdowns. So no touchdowns, and the Patriots were able to win. I mean, Hayden, another debate here. You don't need to have Tom Brady's arm to win the ball game anymore. With the cast around him, it's possible to win without Brady throwing touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thunk that LeGarrette Blount was going to be the guy to carry the Patriots? But man, 4 touchdowns. He had the best game of his career, and arguably the biggest game of his career. So what a performance by him. When you get that kind of production, 166 yards, 4 touchdowns, you don't need Tom Brady. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
And the big thing is, I think LeGarrette Blount was remembered as that Oregon player that punched the Boise State player a couple of years, like 3 or 4 years ago in Boise, and that was like the whole thing. It brought up character problems and all this stuff. He went to Tampa Bay for the Buccaneers for a little bit, and then Bill Belichick makes a trade to get him, trades a couple guys, gets them, and then this happens. So it looks like, if you look back 4 or 5 months ago when he made that trade, it's like, Belichick, what are you doing? Now it's like, that was a genius call to get LeGarrette Blount on this team. Yeah,
I think it was another Belichick trade. I think that's what he does. He kind of takes guys with problems in one area, and he'll mold them to be to the Patriot way, and it's no different with LeGarrette Blount. I mean, he fell in the draft because of the problems with the punching, and he fell in the draft with character issues, and he played well in Tampa, but it ultimately was too much, and Belichick said, hey, this guy's got the talent. If we can make him, into a character guy, he'll definitely produce, and I think he's done so thus far. So, we'll see what happens off the field with him. I think all of his problems are off the field, because on the field, obviously, he's a monster.
Absolutely. Also in the backfield, Stephen Ridley for New England, 14 carries, 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. Julian Edelman, 6 catches, 84 yards. But an interesting stat I found, Patriots 4-0 and Brady doesn't throw a touchdown in the playoffs. So really, they've done this 3 times before this game. They won all of them. Patriots, I think they're going to need to score some touchdowns this week when they play in the AFC Championship game in the air.
Yeah, this week is going to be definitely a different story. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, absolutely. But before we get to that one, Bank of America Stadium is where the Carolina Panthers play at. And there was a gold rush there against the 49ers, and the 49ers getting the work done there. And it was a physical, intense game. You had Kaepernick celebrating. You had Baldwin going after people. But the big thing, San Francisco's defense, 5 sacks on Cam Newton, immobilizing a little bit. Don't let him run around, but he's going down on our terms. I mean, Kaepernick, the big thing, he scores a touchdown, does the little Superman trademark touchdown that Cam Newton normally does. I mean, really, it was a very intense game with really an NFC title spot on the line.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Newton did not have it. The San Francisco defense just proved to be too much, and it's going to make for a very interesting game this week between these two, defenses in Seattle and San Francisco. But ultimately, I think it was a good learning experience for Cam Newton. I don't think they're done. I think next year they're going to have a great year, and I think they're going to, make it back, and maybe the experience will prove to be enough to get them in the next round this year or next year. But this year, I just don't think they were ready. San Francisco has that pedigree, making it to the Super Bowl last year. Kaepernick is certainly proved himself to be one of the better quarterbacks in the playoffs. So 2 games on the road thus far they've won, and we'll see if it'll be a third next week.
Looking at the stat line, Colin Kaepernick, 15 of 28, 196 yards and a touchdown. Cam Newton, his counterpart, 16 of 25, 267 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, also had 10 carries for 54 yards. But really, Newton, he passed a little bit more, a little bit better accuracy, but the 2 interceptions, and especially in playoff games, turnovers cost you. We saw that with the Colts. 4 picks, that dooms you. 2 picks, in this case, it also dooms you.
Yeah, you cannot turn the ball over in the playoffs. I mean, it happened with Luck, and it happened with Cam Newton, and it's a theme. Guys who don't turn the ball over are very successful, and guys who do turn the ball over are not successful. So, as good as Cam was this year, you can't throw 2 picks in the playoffs and expect to win.
With that San Francisco defense, Dante Whitner, Patrick Willis, the 2 guys with the interceptions in that game. Also some other interesting numbers. Frank Gore, 17 carries, 84 yards. Anquan Boldin, 8 catches, 136 yards. This is the same Boldin that we saw in Arizona. Same one that we saw with Baltimore last year and got a Super Bowl. And it's like he's still bringing in those numbers regardless of who's throwing the football at him.
Man, he's a winner. I mean, that's all you can really say about him at this point, especially, with what he did in Arizona and what he did in Baltimore and what he's doing now with San Francisco. He's an absolute winner. Just plays the game the right way, plays hard, knows what he's doing. He's, as I talked about this last week with Clemson and with, Taj Boyd, having a receiver like Anquan Boldin for Colin Kaepernick is huge. Gives him a huge confidence boost. Colin Kaepernick's not scared to throw the ball to him, and it's definitely a big, a big confidence boost for him. So I think that's why we continue to see, Boldin playing so well, and Kaepernick playing so well, especially with, 2 road games. I mean, it was tough. Both
are playing really well. Also, another receiving core member, Michael Crabtree, 3 catches, 26 yards. Crabtree back from his Texas Tech days in that air raid offense. And their counterparts, Carolina Panthers, Ted Ginn Jr., who used to go here at Ohio State, 4 catches, 104 yards. So also, again, he's getting over 25 yards a pop per reception, but with him and Steve Smith had 4 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Those 2 guys, they hailed in yards, but it just wasn't enough to take down a very good, very talented San Francisco offense and defense.
Yeah, yardage means nothing if you can't score. I mean, that was absolutely the catalyst in this game. I mean, it's great to see Ted Ginn playing so well, especially with his Ohio State ties. Finally an offense has learned how to use him, just kind of take him up the field and make big plays. He was never really a great receiver, with route running, but he's fast, and that's how they utilize him. So props to the Panthers for finally getting it right. But as I said, it's not about that. It's about scoring, and they weren't able to.
So the NFC title matchup set. You had the 49ers and the Seahawks. Then the final game in the AFC divisional matchup, Broncos stopping the Chargers' surge, 24-17 victory for Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. My jersey pick, it won, so we 1-0 so far in the postseason right now. But the Broncos, it was in jeopardy though. Broncos, 17-0 lead at the end of the 3rd quarter. It looked like they had this thing sewn up. Chargers have 17 points in the 4th quarter, but really, Broncos and time management, 35 minutes of the clock was theirs. 3rd down efficiency, 9 of 13. I mean, Peyton Manning is a time manager, and when the game's on the line, he can keep you alive, and he can make sure you can win that ball game.
Yeah, Peyton Manning is, he's a time manager, or he's a game manager, and an absolute monster of a quarterback at the same time. When you put those 2 things together, you have who I believe is the best quarterback of all time. I mean, he just knows how to do everything so well, and that's why I'm so excited to see him and Brady this weekend, because they're both so tremendous. But it just seemed like Denver was, they had things wrapped up and they kind of let back a little bit. This week they can't do that. There's no way. If you back up against the Patriots, they're going to find a way to win, and Peyton Manning won't let that happen this week if they do find themselves ahead.
Right, Peyton Manning, 25 of 36, 230 yards, 2 scores, an interception. The big thing, 0 sacks. He didn't go down at all against the Chargers with the football. Phillip Rivers, his counterpart, 18 of 27, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns. But the touchdowns he had there, I mean, Keenan Allen, 6 catches, 142 yards, 2 scores. He was the reason why the Chargers were still in this ball game.
Yeah, that's efficiency if I've ever seen it. 6 catches, 140 yards. I mean, he was just the catalyst at the end of the game. Again, I think it was an issue of the Broncos defense pressing a little bit lack of their pressing. But hey, they got away with a win, and that's all you can ask for in the playoffs.
Also, Demaryius Thomas, 8 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So the Broncos, Patriots, they seal the AFC Championship matchup. That's who we're going to have next week. But we will take a short break and come back with college athletics here on the National Hour.
And welcome back to the National Hour. We just wrapped up our NFL discussion. We're going to get into some college athletics. First and foremost, the Ohio State Buckeyes lost to Michigan State last week. It was definitely a good game, though. Ohio State stormed back to force overtime after being down 17, and they weren't able to get it done in overtime as they lost by a final score of 72-68. But what can we say about these Buckeyes after such a tremendous game?
I mean, the Buckeyes, they go on a 23 run to end out the second half. I mean, with 5 minutes left, I mean, I'm watching the game. I'm thinking, this Ohio State team, they are dead to rights right now. If they come back, Michigan State lost this game, and really they were a layup away from ending this thing in regulation. But, I mean, for the Spartans, I mean, this is why the Breslin Center is such a tough place to win at. When this Izzo is really making noise, Izzo's on his game, everybody else in the arena, they aren't sitting on their hands. They will win these kind of ball games. I mean, looking at the stat lines, I mean, Kraft 9.6 assists, 2 boards, but 4 turnovers. I mean, the turnovers are a big portion in this game. And really for Ohio State, those down the stretch hurt them. But I think really for Ohio State, the big thing to look forward to is Sam Thompson, 18 points, 8 boards, 2 steals off the bench. Going forward, Sam Thompson, he may be the guy you want to go to in a big-time game.
Right, and there was another small forward who had a great game as well, a freshman, Mark Loving. He came off the bench, had 10 points, a steal, and a block, made some clutch baskets for the Buckeyes down the stretch. I mean, what can you say about this freshman?
Well, I think for Mark Loving, coming up with 10 points, steal, and a block off the bench, I mean, in a big-time environment, this is not like a cream puff non-conference game they were playing. This was a legitimate contender for a Final Four and a national championship in Michigan State. But more importantly, he did this on the road. He wasn't inside the Schottenstein Center where you had the Nut House cheering him on. He was on the road against a very loud, very intimidating Izzone. I mean, if he pulled up these kind of numbers, if you're an Ohio State fan, even if you're Thad Matta and the team in general, this is the kind of things you dream of having. A freshman that comes in with an instant impact like that, he can only move forward.
Right, and it's been about a year since Ohio State's have really had an impact freshman, so it'll be interesting to see if Mark Loving is that guy. But for Michigan State, it was the story of the 2 monsters. I mean, Keith Appling finished with 20 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and Adrian Payne, who was supposed to not even play in the game. He had a back injury of some sort, and but he did play, and he played very, very well. Scored 18 points, had 6 rebounds, an assist, and a block off the bench. I mean, what can you say about Adrian Payne's performance?
I think for Adrian Payne to do that, if you're not 100%, I can understand like the adrenaline and everything that gets you back into that ball game. But then again, looking at that, I mean, he could have easily had 4 points and 5 or 6 turnovers, but he was just so dominating on the inside. The 6 boards, 18 points. He's at 100% and he's going up and getting rebounds like that. I mean, that's very impressive. Granted, Ohio State's inside game isn't the greatest, but the fact that Ohio State, when they were coming alive, he was trying to stop the momentum. I mean, I think that was a huge thing to do if you were Adrian Payne.
Right, and I think Adrian Payne kind of exposed Ohio State's interior flaws. I mean, Amir Williams did not play well for the majority of the game. Trey McDonald did not play well either. So Ohio State's going to have to get that fixed if they're going to make a run in this Big Ten schedule. But after that game against Michigan State, which was a tough loss, Ohio State came back home in Columbus and was able to play against Iowa, but did not play well again. Fell by 10 points to Iowa, who is proving to be one of the surprise teams in the country at this point. What did you see in this game?
I think what I saw in this game was just Iowa, the starters in general, these guys are good. 4 of your starters in double figures on the road. This is not in Iowa. This is on the road here. I mean, Melson Basabi, 11 points, 10 boards, and an assist. I mean, that's unprecedented to do that at home, but you're doing this against a top 5 ranked Ohio State team. And really, Iowa, they were down 5 or 6, hit a couple big shots, and came right back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the way they played. I mean, their starters were not taking anything for granted. They were making all their shots. Aaron White, who's a Strongsville, Ohio native, Ohio State did not recruit him. He put up 19 points, 6 rebounds. I'm sure that was a big game for him, especially being back in his home state with, Ohio State, all the allure and the grandeur of Ohio State. But for Ohio State, it was the LaQuinton Ross show, 22 points from him. But he's been inconsistent. I mean, against Michigan State, he did not play well. He's kind of sat on the bench in place of Mark Loving. I mean, what's going on with Q?
I mean, I think there's the inconsistency there. I mean, looking at from that game against Iowa for Ohio State, LaQuinton Ross sitting on 5 turnovers. Aaron Craft had 3 steals, but he had 6 turnovers too. So between Craft and Ross, you have 11 turnovers right there. I mean, this Ohio State team, they've been known to turn it over, but at that kind of volume, if you keep doing this, especially when you got to take on teams like Wisconsin on the road, you got to take on Michigan State again. I don't think Ohio State can win. The Buckeyes can win with that kind of really turnover differential margin there. They're going to have to play smart basketball and keep possession, take smart possessions, and take even smarter shots there. Because it's better to have this happen now than have this happen in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament, where if you lose, you're done. Here, you know what your weaknesses are. You almost have an entire conference schedule to get back on track and make a perfect run into the tourney time.
Well, that's kind of the question. What is this Ohio State team? Are they the team that we've seen the past 2 games? I mean, that is getting exposed, or are they a tough team that's going to be, contenders come Final Four, or come March, I should say?
I think it's a combination of both. I don't think they're on one side of a great team or on the other side of so many holes they're going to sink. I think some days they play up to the teams like Michigan State. They played up as best as you can in a losing effort. But then you let Iowa essentially make full court passes against you on 8 or 9 possessions. I mean, it would be a big Buckeye layup marred by an Iowa full court pass, and a dunk. You can't have that. You have to get quickly back on your defensive set there. I mean, that's very teachable stuff right there. But it's good to have this happen now so you know where the weaknesses are. I think for the Buckeyes, I personally think this Iowa loss was actually a good thing. You know what your problems are now. You let 4 Iowa guys score in double figures. Next time you got to play them, the next time you got to play a top team like Wisconsin, you know exactly what to look for and exactly how to shut down a very hot offense.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a mixture of Ohio State being a little overrated. I don't think they were the number 3 team in the country with the schedule they played compared to some of the others. And the Iowa game was definitely a tough one, but I think the Michigan State game was really good. I think that they showed that they are going to be tough come March, regardless of how far they make it. I mean, they're going to be a good team. I think it's a matter of time. And as you said, I think this was good for Ohio State, losing to a team like Iowa as a wake-up call, saying, hey, this is the best conference in college basketball, and we're going to have to play well week in and week out. So I think it was both good and bad, and I think it shows it was a good litmus test to see where Ohio State is at this point. Ohio State next plays Minnesota, and they're going to have some tough games after that. So we'll definitely see where the Buckeyes are headed, but we're going to talk about some college football now, some big coaching changes in the Big Ten especially. First and foremost, we have James Franklin, the former Vanderbilt Commodores head coach, headed to Penn State. So what are we thinking about this move?
I think it's for Penn State. It was a decent call. You bring in a guy like Franklin. In Vanderbilt, he wasn't bad. He was actually recruiting well, doing some good things there. But look at who he's going up against. You have LSU, you have Alabama, you had Auburn, you have just the powerhouse that is the SEC. He was able to manage through it, go to a couple bowl games, win a few bowl games. So I think that for Penn State moving forward, this might be the right guy. But I think overall, we'll see if he's the right guy, if he can recruit well in state, and if he can start winning some games in the Big Ten.
Right. Now, Franklin was signed to a deal worth $25 million for 6 years. So, I mean, we saw Franklin back out of a game with Ohio State. He's going to have to play Ohio State, every year.
Yep.
And, I mean, is he ready for that challenge? Is he ready to face, these teams? I mean,
the first couple of years is going to be tough because you have some of the players who are coming off the O'Brien era with the O'Brien mentality. Now you're shifting to the Franklin mentality. So that's going to take 2 or 3 years to actually sort out. Look at what happened to Michigan. You have Rich Rod and then Hoke. There's going to be 2 or 3 years. They went to that. They had that one Sugar Bowl run, but then after that, it was sort of like the declining. Both the mentalities were mashing together, and you've got 4 or 5 lost seasons there. I think for Penn State, they'll see some more of that. A 5 or 6 lost season this year, but luckily there's no bowl game on the line, so they can use that as a learning curve. But 2 years from now, that's when he's had a year to get himself settled, a year to make some key recruits come in here, a year to make some great strides in the program. But it's only time will tell right now because it's so early in this process. We don't know what he's going to do.
Right. And Penn State won with the hire of Franklin, but did they lose because In the process, they also lost Larry Johnson
Yes.
Sr., the defensive line coach, who is now, as of this moment, has been hired by Ohio State to replace Mike Vrabel. So an interesting move by Larry Johnson and for Ohio State. I mean, what do you make of the whole thing? I mean, between the hire and the loss of Johnson, I mean, what can all this mean?
I think for Penn State, you lose Larry Johnson Sr. I think it's a lot larger than what people are looking at. His son, Larry Johnson, was from Pomfret, Maryland for a little bit, went to one of the high schools around where I lived in Southern Maryland, go to Penn State, was a very good running back at Penn State. Larry Johnson then went on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, had a pretty good career there. But it's that entire family, it's been Penn State. His dad's coaching there, his kid went there, and now it's not like he went from Penn State to USC. He went to Penn State to Ohio State. For a lot of Penn State fans, they consider Ohio State their main rival. I know Ohio State considers Michigan the rival. Well, in the eyes of Penn State, Ohio State is their key rival, and he went there. I think the thing with Larry Johnson Sr. going there is he goes to Ohio State. He's just not bringing his body there. He's got to bring some recruits there. He's already established himself as a good recruiter in state. He's now flipping the guys who go to Penn State to go to Ohio State. And really for Franklin, that is the worst-case scenario. Some of the same guys you thought you had are going to get lured away because a guy who's been there for so long is saying, hey, come to Ohio State. Come to play with Urban Meyer. This team is championship ready right now. Do you want to win a title or do you want to go to a rebuilding Penn State team that may not make it to like a Capital One Bowl or even a BCS-esque game when the playoff system comes in?
Yeah, it was definitely a big move for Ohio State, who needed to bolster that defense. They also hired Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator from Arkansas today. So two big moves for the Ohio State defense. It'll be interesting to see how they affect this defense going forward, and especially with the whole Luke Fickell drama. A lot of Ohio State fans are not liking what he's bringing right now. But moving on, Texas hired Charlie Strong from Louisville to be their head coach. Big move for the Longhorns, especially with Mac Brown being there for so long. Hiring a guy like Strong is kind of an unprecedented move because, we haven't seen that many coaching changes in Texas. So, I mean, what can we make of this hire? Is it something that Texas is going to regret down the road?
5-year, $25 billion. That, off the bat, that's a top contract right there. You're putting them up in the same conversation as possibly an Urban Meyer of sorts, of Franklin now with that kind of contract. That's essentially ballpark there. But I think for Charlie Strong, you go from Florida as a coordinator, then you go over to Louisville, then you go to Texas. I understand it's a head coaching jump, but Louisville, they didn't win the AAC, the American Athletic Conference. They lost to Central Florida, who granted made it to the BCS. Now you're going to go to Texas. Unlike Louisville, where you could get away with maybe a 1 or 2 loss season and you would still be loved there, you go to Texas, it's got to be day one instantly. We want to beat Oklahoma. We want a Big 12 title. We want a national championship. So he, off the bat, has to start winning. I mean, for Mac Brown the past few seasons, that's been what people have gone after him. Nobody remembers that national title he won in 05-06 against USC. It's, what have you done for me lately? And the answer is, since that Fiesta Bowl game against Ohio State, nothing. I think for Charlie Strong, if he goes through 1 or 2 years where he can't put together a good 10 or 11 win team, I really think the Board of Trustees, they're going to look at him and go, look, we want a guy that can win instantly. If you can't do that, we're going to buy out your contract, let you go.
So knowing that, is this a good call or a bad call?
I think right now, because I wouldn't say it's a great call right now. I really think Mac Brown was the right guy still. Give him a couple of years, say him, look, we're for real now. You got to start winning. I expect if he would have been given that, or at least a little bit stronger push, a good 9-10 win season next year. Granted, I mean, Texas, they went to a title game a few years ago, so he can win. The problem is with college athletics, you go through cycles. You have a couple great years, a couple okay years. He was just happy to be in that small valley where you're losing games. Give him 2 or 3 more years, who knows? He could have another national championship for the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought it was an iffy hire because I felt like, there were a lot of rumors of Nick Saban maybe taking the job at Texas, and to go from Nick Saban, an established national championship legend, to Charlie Strong is a little bit of a fall off.
That's a big jump.
So,
right there.
I don't love the hire, but we'll see how it goes. Finally, just real quick here, Lane Kiffin was introduced as Alabama's offensive coordinator. Nick Saban making a big splash there. And at the same time, their former offensive coordinator, Doug Nussmeier, was hired by Michigan. So Very interesting moves there. But when we get back, we're going to talk a little baseball. We're going to talk a little NFL action. So you should stay tuned here on the National Hour.
And welcome back here on the National Hour. He's Hayden Grove. I'm Jeff Hammersley. Hayden, we talked about the NFL divisional playoffs. We talked about college athletics. Now we're going to go back to our final segment, just a potpourri of sports. The first thing, Alex Rodriguez suspended for the 2014 baseball season. And if you watch that 60 Minutes special last week, really some in-depth stuff. Really, it's right there on paper with the text and stuff. Really can't run from it. 1 year ban, it was a little bit more. It got reduced down, but in the question I'm asking right now, in the steroid era, anybody associated with PEDs, do they deserve to go to the Hall of Fame?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm going to say no. I'm a baseball purist. I love the game, so I'm going to say no. They don't belong. My favorite player growing up was Jim Thome, and that was always a guy that we didn't think about in terms of steroids and whatnot. So I don't know. I guess I'm a baseball purist. So yeah, I'd say that no. I'd say that Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez. I'd say they all don't belong.
If that's the case, so you mean guys like Craig Biggio, who missed it by just a few votes, should he have been in the Hall of Fame? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
But here's the thing: you have all these stars who juiced. There could be a few 3 or 4 years where nobody goes to the Hall. Or guys who were completely undeserving somehow find a way into the Hall. Are you okay with that portion? If you stop the guys in the steroids from going in, you almost invite that scenario happening.
Yeah, I understand your point and I get it, but at the same time, there are a lot of under-the-radar guys who do deserve it. Craig Biggio didn't make it in this year. He probably should have been first ballot. It's things like that. There's a lot wrong with Baseball Hall of Fame, voting and the whole system, and I think it kind of needs to be revamped and redone. I kind of talked about this last week on our final thought segment. I kind of believe that people are making a joke out of it, and it needs to definitely be switched up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this whole steroid age issue, because I know it's definitely not done yet.
Right, that was the baseball portion. Now we're going to go back to some NFL stuff. Ken Whisenhunt signs to the Tennessee Titans right there as the head coach, leaving San Diego Chargers as a coordinator. He used to be a coach there for Arizona Cardinals for a little bit. Do you like the hire there in Tennessee for him?
My best friend is a Tennessee Titans fan, and he thinks it's okay, so I'm going to go with him. I think it's an okay hire. I don't think it's a splash. I don't think it's a big move. I know Detroit was looking at bringing him in. I just remember that there were a lot of issues, internal issues with the Arizona Cardinals when he was there in terms of character flaws and whatnot, chemistry issues. But I think it's an okay hire. I don't think it's fantastic at all, but I think it's a decent hire for them. I think it's an upgrade over Munchak, so I think the Titans, I think they'll be okay.
I actually dig this hire. I really like this hire. He was in Arizona. He was decent there for a little bit. Had a couple bad years, kicked out, went to San Diego, reestablished a very good offense there. Philip Rivers, I thought, got a little bit better with him as a coordinator and stuff. But I think mostly with the Chargers, once again, that team has been known to not do well in the playoffs. So I think that might have carried a little bit with him there. But I think for Tennessee, bringing him in as a head coach there, he gets another shot at becoming a head coach. And if he gets the right pieces together on offense and defense, who knows? This could be a swing team that all of a sudden goes from, could be next year's Kansas City Chiefs of sorts. They go off the radar in that one season and get a good 6-7-0 start, 6-1 start, and then start winning some football games, get into the playoffs. And for Tennessee, really since the Aaron McNair days, that's been the last time they've been actually relevant in the AFC South.
Yeah, I don't know. They have a lot of issues in terms of Chris Johnson. I know he wants to get out. He's been talking about how the Titans have ruined him. I don't know if they're convinced that Locker is the guy there. So, again, there's a lot of issues. I think Whisenhunt can bring it together, but I think there's too much going on right now for them to be a quality contender next year.
All right, that's the Ken Whisenhunt thing. Now we're off to our predictions. AFC, NFC Championship weekend. The 4 helmets sitting right in front of our desk here, so when they go back to the full camera view, you're going to see the Seahawks, the Niners, Patriots, and the Broncos. First game, Broncos, Patriots, another meeting between Brady versus Manning. Denver's cornerback Chris Harris out of the game with an ACL tear out for the season now. Has 3 picks for the Broncos, tied for most of the team. Who do you got, Broncos or Patriots?
football fans win. Anytime you
Absolutely.
have Brady and Manning in the same game, you win. It's just they're the two best quarterbacks in the league. It's without a doubt. I love watching both these guys play, even though Brady's a Michigan guy. I'm the biggest Peyton Manning guy in the world. I think he's just such a tremendous quarterback. So I'm gonna take the Broncos because I think it's Peyton Manning's year. He's broken all the records. Everything's gone right for them. I think that continues. I think it's Peyton's year to win the Super Bowl. Honestly.
I picked Peyton Manning for my first jersey pick. I picked him for my last jersey pick. My first ever playoff jersey pick, I picked him too. New England Patriots, I picked Brady. He let me down. It was against Carolina. I was certain. This pick is a hit. The Patriots, there's no way they're losing at Carolina. And they lost. So I'm going to keep the tradition.
He's bringing
I'm
it back.
going to bring another Peyton Manning pick here.
All right.
Once again, remember last week I talked about here it is. The captain patch, this is the reason why. Time manager, looking back from the stats in that divisional game, 35 minutes time of possession, 9 of 13 on third down, clutch throw after clutch throw for him. I think it's another Peyton Manning Super Bowl run, his third, and it's only good things can happen when number 18 suits up for a game.
That's right. Peyton Manning is the best in the business. But our other game, NFC game now, another jersey pick for you. San Francisco and Seattle. Who do you have?
Let's start with you first. Let me ask the question. Who do you have, Hayden?
I'm taking Seattle. I think Seattle at home, you cannot beat the 12th man. You cannot beat Skittles. You cannot beat Beast Mode. You cannot beat Russell Wilson. I think that they're just too good. I think it's their year. San Francisco had a nice run. Kaepernick's good. Like what they're doing with their team. But I think this is Seattle's year to prove that they are the best team in the NFC.
Seattle's doing something interesting. I don't know how I feel about this. They're restricting access to tickets. Really, they're holding it down. British Columbia, that kind of area, they're getting the tickets. It's tough to get if you live in Ohio or you live in Maryland or you live in California. I think that may motivate San Francisco. So I have San Francisco. We're going to break out the Joe Montana jersey.
Joe Montana.
Here's the problem, though. It's going to motivate them. I can't speak English now. It's going to motivate them. But not enough.
He's throwing
it's
it.
It's not going to be enough to motivate
He's throwing
them.
it.
So I'm going to go with the Big Ten man who was here for a few years for Wisconsin. And also look at the inside here. There's another big reason. If you can see that, the 12th man. The 12th man, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll and company. I got Seattle in this one. I think it's going to be a Broncos-Seahawks Super Bowl matchup in probably a cold, snowy New York. But I think it's Broncos taking home an AFC crown and the Seahawks taking home the NFC crown.
He threw the jersey, folks. I mean, that was spectacular right there. You tricked us all right there.
Corso-esque right there. It was a perfect setup.
Yep.
Perfect setup right there.
He followed the Lee Corso handbook right there.
All right, then now we're going to go off to our final stories.
This week, it was announced that the Cleveland Indians are using a generic block C to replace the legendary Chief Wahoo as the Indians' primary logo. While the phase-out of Chief Wahoo has been well on its way for many years now, I have finally come to terms with the decision and agree that it may be best for all involved. You see, Chief Wahoo was the symbol of my youth. As a lifelong Tribe fan, the majority of my closet growing up was filled with shirts, hats, and even socks that featured the cheeky red-faced cartoon. As hard as it was for me to let him go, I understand that while I will always have an appreciation for the memories that Chief Wahoo brought me, to hurt a group of people, in this case the Native American people, for something as trivial as nostalgia is simply not worthwhile. Besides, it was the Indians who brought me the memories, the players beneath the jerseys and beneath the logos who brought me and continue to bring me so much joy. The Indians will still be playing baseball, and until they don't, I can't complain.
Brady versus Manning, Manning versus Brady. Either way you want to call it, they meet again. And to football fans, this is exactly what you want to see. Manning looks to make another Super Bowl appearance, his third, while Brady is looking to get back to the Super Bowl for the first time in 2 seasons. On the other side of things is the NFC title contest. The Seahawks and 49ers have turned into the AFC equivalent of the Steelers-Ravens of late. Harbaugh versus Carroll, Kaepernick versus Wilson, a high-octane Seattle offense versus a tough-as-nails 49ers defense. The matchups that will set the fate for the Super Bowl next month are what the fans were looking for before the season even started. No matter who wins the conference titles, there will be a great matchup in MetLife Stadium for the Super Bowl. But most importantly, the fans will come in droves to cheer on their team in the bitter cold and hopefully see their team take home a Super Bowl trophy.
So, Jeff, we got another tremendous weekend of football ahead of us. We got 2 big-time matchups. What are you going to be doing for the game?
I think, for me, I'm just going to be in the dorm, just watching the games, probably have a few friends over, try to get some homework done in between both of them, but really, it's Brady versus Manning, Seahawks and 49ers. I mean, those are 2 great matchups. I'll try to watch as much as I can. No guarantees I'll watch them all, but definitely that Broncos-Patriots matchup, got to watch as much as I can for that. And really for Seattle and versus San Francisco, that has turned in to the NFC equivalent of a Steelers-Ravens kind of matchup where it's got to be in the trenches. Both teams are going to be fighting. Every yard is going to be a battle to get, and that's just amazing to have if you're a fan of football.
Yeah, the ratings are going to be through the roof this weekend, with Brady and Manning and the AFC West divisional rivalry. It's turning into a really, really good one out there. So who are the winners, Jeff? We are the winners. The viewers are the winners this weekend. But that's all we have time for today, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show. And for Jeff Hammersley, I'm Hayden Grove, and we'll see you next week.